Sometimes when you're backpacking, making a big mistake is the best way to ensure that that mistake never happens again. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 things that I will never do again while backpacking, and I'm sure you'll get a good laugh. Let's go! As backpackers, we're continually honing our skills and getting better and better at what we do. But let me tell you, that road of experience can often lead to some crazy blunders along the way. Today, I'm going to tell you about 5 blunders that I made that left me saying, I am never going to let that happen again. The last one is a little bit embarrassing and it'll probably leave you shaking your head. Number 1, the scene was Little Yosemite Valley Campground. This is the campground that most people stay at after they hike out of Yosemite Valley. It's a pretty nice campground and there are quite a few people there. My son and I got done setting up our tents and realized that the sky was getting pretty dark. It started to rain, so we took shelter in our tents. Well, let me tell you, the torrential downpour was ridiculous. It lasted for 45 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating when I say the raindrops were as big as raisins. They were huge. After the rain stopped, I opened the door to my tent and couldn't believe what I saw. This is not good. Torrential downpour. This is a river running under my tent. This was just a complete mess. Everything we had was just drenched. We ended up having to dig a channel out of the campsite to get the water to drain out of this mini lake that had formed. But I felt really bad for the lady next to us. She had never been camping before. This was her first night in the woods, and that's her tent there on the left in about 6 inches of water. Eventually, we moved our tents to where they should have been in the first place, on the higher ground. So the thing I'll never do again while backpacking is pitch my tent in a low spot. Number 2. This is the famed golden staircase, 99 switchbacks that we have to climb up. Ah, the famed golden staircase of Mather Pass on the John Muir Trail. Now you'd think that before climbing 99 switchbacks in really hot, dry weather, you'd top off your water bottles, right? Nope. That was a big problem. We ran out of water about 10 switchbacks in, and it was miserable. We were so thirsty and so parched, and we checked our app and found out that there wasn't going to be water until we got to the top. I tell you, that was a big lesson learned. So, the second thing I will never do again while backpacking is fail to understand where the next water stop is going to be. The third one happened when my son was attempting to cross a stream over some rocks. He accidentally slipped and fell and caught his leg between a wedge in the rocks and dropped his trekking poles, and they got washed away. So this is where Callan fell in. See the crevice between the 2 rocks. He kind of put his foot in between there, fell forward and dropped both poles, and then they started to float downstream. Luckily, there was a pool of water not too far downstream, and Callan was able to rescue his poles. But if you think about it, it's pretty hard for trekking poles to fall into the river if your wrist straps are around your wrists. So the third thing we'll never do again while backpacking is cross a stream without putting your wrist straps on your wrists. The next one takes place in the Porcupine Mountains. It was the very beginning of our trip. I had just put on my pack and was studying the map, and in fact my trunk was still open. Suddenly I had a thought that, hey, I better put my car keys in my pack so I don't lose them. I set the map down in the trunk, put my keys in my pack, and then put my pack on, shut the trunk, and headed off on our trip. Unfortunately, the map was still in the trunk. And sadly, it was several hours later and much too late before we realized it. It really kind of sucks to go backpacking with no map. And this was before the days of stuff like apps on cell phones, so we were kind of stuck. The fourth thing I'll never do again while backpacking is leave the map in the trunk. Nowadays, my primary map source is using an app like Guthook. Also, I keep a paper copy of a map in a Ziploc bag and a photograph of the paper copy in my phone. Hopefully that should be enough to keep us safe. Number 5. Now this one happened a long time ago and I was much younger, so please keep that in mind when passing judgment. I was out in the woods and nature was calling, so I asked my friend that I was camping with if I could borrow his trowel. He said yes, and I headed off into the woods. A few minutes later, I came back out of the woods and handed him his trowel. He looked at it and said, "Why is my trowel wet?" I said, "Well, that's because I needed to wash it." He said, "Why did you wash the trowel?" I said, "Well, because I needed to clean off the poop." He said, "Explain to me the sequence of events that led to there being poop on my trowel." I said, "Sure." I went back in the woods, I squatted down, I did my duty, I dug a hole, I used the trowel to knock the poop into the hole, and then I covered it back up. And he looked at me, and he said, "You idiot. You dig the hole first, then you poop in the hole, then you cover it up, and the trowel never gets dirty." I said, "Yeah, that seemed to make a lot of sense." So since then, I've had many successful poops in the woods without the trowel getting dirty. So already you probably know that the last thing I will never do again while backpacking is take a poop prior to digging the hole. I hope you found some humor in some of my misfortune. If you've done anything similar, I'd love to read about it in the comments section. If you found any value in this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching!